Now at 10 and streaming on crossroadstoday.com, a century-old girls' camp turns into a scene of heartbreak, where search efforts are focused and who is still unaccounted for.
Plus, how local groups are now rallying to help grieving families.
And rising tensions in McAllen after a shooting at a federal building, who police say opened fire and where he came from.
Well, finally, at long last, the flash flood watches are finally down throughout western areas. They've been up since last Thursday. Today, we had a few little showers. We'll get a few little more, but shouldn't be anything like what we've seen this weekend. We'll have more in the weather coming up.
And St. Joseph Softball hosts their annual youth softball camp tonight, the Field of Dreams. We'll hear from one of the softball players and their head coach later on in sports.
You're watching 25 News now at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Shauna Curry.
And I'm Trenton Whiting, in for Don Brubaker. Lifeway Baptist Church in Cuero is recognizing the difficulties of flooding survivors in the Texas Hill Country. Community members joined the church for prayer vigil this evening. Some in attendance say the level of devastation is shocking, and it will take the state coming together to help the survivors pick up the pieces after one of the deadliest floods in Texas history. Community vigil leader Katie Flores encouraged people to find a church and let someone help wherever possible.
It's unimaginable. Our hearts hurt for them, but we just pray that they find hope.
Donations are still coming in to support the survivors in the Hill Country. To find out how you can help, call the volunteer hotline at 830-465-4797. And while we're on the topic, let's take a look at the latest number of deaths due to those floods. Many of those lives were a part of a girls' camp, Camp Mystic in Kerr County. 10 campers and 1 counselor are still missing, and 84 people total were killed in Kerr County. In Travis County, 7 people died and 10 are still missing. In Kendall County, 6 people died due to the flooding, and in Burnett County, 4 people died and 2 are missing.
In Williamson County, the floods took the life of 2 people and 1 person there is missing. And in Tom Green County, which is the San Angelo area, 1 person was killed.
Yes, so that leads us to our viewer poll for this evening. We ask you, how can flood warnings and river safety be improved? 3 options here, either increased police patrols, advanced timely weather alerts, or improved community flood education plans. And basically all day in the lead has been advanced timely weather alerts. Here we see 46% of our voters choosing that option. And, you know, I was saying earlier that maybe a mix of all 3 potentially could help a situation like this. But again, very unexpected flooding, very unexpected rains, and very tough situation for those in the Hill Country. But we still want to hear from you. So go ahead and visit crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part. We thank you so much for voting. Tonight we're learning more about a family from Liberty lost in the flooding. The father died while his wife and 2 little boys remain missing.
And Jason Miles has more on this heartbreaking story.
American flags still fly in a Liberty, Texas neighborhood where the 4th of July also brought heartbreaking news. What's going through your mind right now regarding your neighbors across the street?
A lot of sadness.
Winnie Taylor and others left flowers and stuffed toys in front of the home of John and Julia Burgess, believed to be inside their RV with their 2 young sons at a campsite in Ingram, Texas, when the Guadalupe River rapidly rose early Friday. According to relatives, John was later found deceased while Julia and her boys remain missing. Their daughter was at an unimpacted summer camp nearby and not injured.
But the neighbors around here, we've all been praying and everything, and it's just a sad, sad situation. I just can't hardly believe it.
I've learned Julia Burgess is a beloved teacher at Liberty Elementary, not far from the family's home. Liberty ISD shared a simple message on social media that stated, quote, "Our hearts are with the Burgess family. Please continue to pray."
I think we're all still trying to wrap our heads and our hearts around this situation.
Mark Linneberry is president and CEO of the East Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, where he says Burgess attended a luncheon 2 days before the flood. He shared his own post with a photo of Burgess cutting a ribbon on his own financial services business a couple of years ago.
You always know when John was in the room because he just had this smile that could light up any room.
Like many, he's prayerful for a miracle as the days pass.
You know, you just kind of want a magic wand, and we don't have one.
Officials say at least 27 campers and counselors died in this catastrophic flooding at a Christian girls' camp. Search teams are still combing through flood-hit areas hoping to find survivors. Most victims were in Kerr County, where the Guadalupe River swelled into a raging torrent in under an hour. Camp Mystic, a century-old girls' retreat, was devastated with mud marks reaching 6 feet inside buildings and belongings scattered everywhere. 10 girls and a counselor remain missing. The camp's co-owner, Richard Eastland, died trying to save the children. One big question here at home is how the rising water will impact the crossroads. A flood warning is in effect for the Guadalupe River near Bloomington starting late Tuesday night through early Friday. But right now, only minor flooding is expected. The river's forecast to crest around 22.1 feet Wednesday afternoon, just above flood stage, similar to what we saw back in 2012. Lowland areas near the Invista plant and some homes above Highway 35 could be affected. We are keeping an eye on it and will bring any updates as the river rises. So now it's time to check in on our weather over the next couple of days.
Yep, so let's check in with Maclovio Perez, who will give us a first look at that weather. So, Mac, what's it look like?
Well, thank you very much. Just to remind everybody, there's two sections to the Guadalupe River. The one above Canyon Dam obviously feeds into the dam. That's why it was built. And the one below Canyon Dam, which is what affects us. We had 10 inches of rain in Seguin, and that's what's coming down the river at our area. I want to show you this. Here we are. There's San Antonio. Here we are. Do you see this cluster? This is the cluster that was around this area since Thursday, and looks like it's finally moved south because the upper air low is finally pulling out of the way. Finally, I think we can get a break and see a little sunshine to dry things out, but certainly was a tragic weather weekend for much of Texas. Now, we're looking at the rest of the week coming up and taking a look at your 7-day in just a few minutes, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In the hard-hit town of Center Point, disabled Army veteran Daniel Carlton is pitching in, chainsaw in hand, balancing on his prosthetic leg. He says service is just who he is, in or out of uniform. Carlton is part of Project Grit, a group turning adversity into action.
My family's been coming to hunt to go camp with our children for the last 15 years. We've known some people who have perished in the flood. You know, we have friends within the camp community who still can't find their daughters. And so, of course, without questions, if you get here, you show up and you do whatever you can.
The founder, Terrence Ogden, says it's simple. He says, if I were in their shoes, how would I want someone to show up? And he says that's exactly what they're doing.
Yes, and while recovery continues after that catastrophic flooding in Kerr and surrounding counties, state and local officials are beginning to determine exactly what happened and how to be better prepared for future events. To read this full story, visit crossroadstoday.com.
As Texas deals with these devastating floods, Chantel brought its own trouble to the East Coast. By the time it reached central North Carolina on Sunday, Chantel had weakened to a tropical depression, but it still packed a punch. Heavy rain caused flash flooding, evacuations, even one death, with tornadoes also spotted across the region. In Chapel Hill, more than 60 people had to be rescued overnight from flooded apartments. They are now returning home to see what can be salvaged. Thousands of people also lost power as the storm moved through that area.
Moving to a situation where authorities say a gunman armed with an AR-style rifle ambushed workers at a U.S. Border Patrol office at the airport in McAllen, Texas. The workers quickly returning fire, ending the threat.
Tonight, the hunt for a motive and the clues they found in his car. Here's ABC's Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
The bullet holes in this Customs and Border Protection office in McAllen, Texas, marking an extraordinarily dangerous morning and ended in a gunfight with a suspect dead.
That's a different gun. You heard that?
Yeah. Barrage of gunfire captured in this video.
It's at the Border Patrol station. Yeah, it's at the Border Patrol station.
There were many dozens of rounds fired.
Authorities claim 27-year-old Ryan Lewis Mosqueda stepped out of his car and immediately began firing. injuring 3 people, including 2 officers, one of whom was shot in the knee. The threat of an active shooter forcing nearby McAllen Airport to briefly shut down. Authorities say the suspect drove all the way from Michigan and are investigating why this car seen here had Latin words spray painted on it. Tonight, the FBI is trying to figure out motive against the backdrop of an incredibly concentrated period of attacks by lone wolf gunmen, including some motivated by terror and political grievances. Pierre Thomas, ABC News, Washington.
Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell. Stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 10, massive tariffs could hit Japan, South Korea, and more. What the president wants from these countries.
And a new law designed to defund certain medical clinics is now on hold. Why a federal judge blocked it. What's next in the fight over access to care?
Trump has signed a new executive order aimed at scaling back federal tax credits for wind and solar energy projects. He promised Republicans he would do it in exchange for their support on that massive domestic policy bill passed last week. Now the bill actually included a last-minute boost for clean energy developers, giving them more flexibility to claim tax credits. Trump's executive order cannot override the law, but it does call on the Treasury Department to crack down, especially on whether wind and solar companies are using parts sourced from China.
President Trump says he'd like to lift U.S. sanctions on Iran when the time is right. Speaking during a dinner with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump said lifting sanctions on Syria is a step toward helping that country move forward, and he hopes Iran could be next if it chooses a more peaceful path. Trump added he would like to see Iran rebuilt. No timeline was given, but he left the door open. Now, the Department of Veterans Affairs is changing course and will not have mass layoffs. The VA announced it will not cut 80,000 workers as was first planned, but the agency says it will still reduce its force by about 30,000 people by the end of the fiscal year at the end of September. The agency says the cutbacks will not impact veteran care or benefits. Some staffers say layoffs have forced doctors and nurses to do more, and morale at the VA is low. President Trump has already signed a disaster declaration for Kerr County here in Texas, and he says he expects to visit this week, likely on Friday.
Meantime, he is waging his trade war, pressuring some of America's largest trading partners and announcing a new deadline to make a deal. ABC's Rachel Scott has the latest.
Tonight, President Trump sending letters to countries around the world, threatening steep new tariffs unless they make a deal. The move sending stocks tumbling. Japan and South Korea, two of America's largest trading partners, now both facing 25% tariffs. South Africa would be hit with 30% tariffs. And for Myanmar and Laos, even steeper 40% tariffs. Trump writing the United States will perhaps consider an adjustment to this letter. These tariffs may be modified upward or downward, depending on our relationship with your country.
We welcome you as a trading partner, and here's the rate, unless you want to come back and try to negotiate.
The administration promised 90 trade deals in 90 days, so far only announcing a deal with Vietnam and framework agreements with China and the UK. Today, the president postponing his own deadline again. Those tariffs were scheduled to go into effect Wednesday, in just 2 days. Now countries have until August 1st. The White House asked, why the delay?
Weeks ago, I stood at this podium and I told all of you that the president was going to create tailor-made trade plans for each and every country on this planet, and that's what this administration continues to be focused on.
Rachel Scott, ABC News, Washington.
Millions of Americans can now breeze through airport security. As of today, the TSA will allow all travelers to keep their shoes on during airport screening, regardless of their pre-check status. This policy change eliminates one of the most inconvenient and widely criticized security measures put in after September 11, 2001 attacks. Modern scanning equipment now enables TSA officers to detect potential threats without requiring passengers to remove their shoes. TSA made the decision after years of reviewing and testing at airports where officers enforce shoe removal rules inconsistently.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from enforcing a new law that would cut funding to Planned Parenthood. The group sued, saying the law passed last week could force nearly 200 clinics to close. While the law does not name Planned Parenthood directly, it does bar Medicaid users from getting care at providers that also offer abortion services, even though those clinics also provide birth control, cancer screenings, and more. The ban was set to take effect, to last 1 year, but for now it will be on hold.
And the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has ended its emergency response to H5N1 bird flu. The agency cited a drop in cases, adding no human infections have been reported since February. The emergency response was declared April 4, 2024, to allow for additional support like increased staffing. A Health and Human Services spokesperson says the CDC will continue to monitor the virus and, and scale up resources as needed. Since 2022, H5N1 has affected nearly 175 million birds and dozens of other species in the U.S. A total of 70 human cases have been reported, with 1 death. Losing a loved one may land you in the hospital.
Yeah, to explain more, here's ABC's Melissa Adon.
Broken heart syndrome is a sudden temporary weakening of the heart muscle, often triggered during moments of severe stress or strong emotions. And men are 2 times more likely to die from it than women, according to a new study in the Journal of the American Heart Association. When you lose someone close to you or have a seizure, the surge of stress hormones released in the body sends your heart into overdrive, temporarily weakening it. Symptoms may feel like a heart attack, chest pain, dizziness, or difficulty breathing can appear within a few minutes to several hours after a stressful event. Most people recover from it, but managing your stress is key to mending a broken heart. Set aside that bottle of liquor and incorporate healthy habits like good sleep, exercise, and strong social support. If you have symptoms, contact your doctor right away or call 911 if you have chest pain, shortness of breath, or feel faint. With this Medical Minute, I'm Melissa Adon.
Well, good evening, everybody. 81 degrees right about now, fairly comfortable out there. We had a high today of 95. That's before the little showers came in. Unfortunately, we missed the rain bucket, so we didn't get any rain officially, but I know that at Riverside Park we did get about 1/10 of an inch. The shower activity that was so dominant over the weekend finally is beginning to move and empty out, and so we'll be talking about that and taking a look at your 7-day forecast in just a moment. Well, good evening, everybody. Obviously, we had a lot of weather over the weekend. As far as we're concerned, we just had a few little afternoon showers that popped up late in the afternoon, right about there. No significant problems there. But here's the really good news that finally the central part of the state has finally cleared up of all that stormy weather. You got to go back a little bit. Last Thursday, we were talking about this because the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry were moving northbound into West Texas. Remember, they were getting rain, we were dry. Well, that collided with an upper air storm, and that is why we had those 30 inches of rain. Today, we have high pressure building here, and the wind around it goes this way. Therefore, that's why you see it sort of going south into Mexico and finally falling apart. Here's the little showers that came through our area today. They only lasted about 10 minutes here in the Navarro area. This is, of course, the Guadalupe River below the city down toward San Antonio Bay, and it'll be out of minor flooding. So if you have interest down there, just consider anything by the river is going to be a little soggy. Here is the stormy weather that we had today, basically from Killeen down to about the Sonora area, but you can see that winding. You can see that winding, and finally it's moving down and giving everybody a break. We did have some rain in the city. Of course, it didn't hit the rain bucket, as I mentioned, and we had a little storm that actually went north of Inez, and of course, since midnight, we had some stormy weather in north central Texas. Look at that. Brady, San Angelo getting 2 to 4 inches of rain, but this was all above I-10. So here's Kerrville. The Guadalupe River would go in that direction, so this was not in the watershed of the Guadalupe. The record rainfall is now in the books. The record, which occurred July 4th, was 37.52. That's the highest elevation of the river. I have covered at least 4 flash floods on the Guadalupe River in my career, and many more that I've talked about. But this one was the one for the record. 3660 is our number 2 now, coming in 1932. And that's why, in 1932, that's why we built Canyon Dam, okay? Because of the floods of the 30s. Now, we're talking about Victoria here and our river. We also had 10 inches of rain in Seguin. That's what's causing the rise. We were running the river at about 6 to 8 feet, 9 feet. It's going to be cresting up tomorrow at 22 feet. So yes, you'll see it rise tomorrow, and then you'll see it fall very rapidly as we get later in the week. So it's basically a one-day rise, so I want you to be very careful around the river. Now, the Guadalupe at Hunt, Texas, where all those parks, those recreation is, had been running at about 7, 8 feet. The wall of water came in, got up to the 38 inches, and today, right now, it's back down to about 8 feet of water. So certainly an amazing kind of event. So we want you to also see the differences between the river. I mean, everything that falls up here goes into Canyon Dam. And Canyon Dam went from 45% full to 62% full, and everything below is what affects us directly. That's why we watch for that. And people ask me all the time, but they keep releasing water out of the dam, there's no dam. Well, they have to. They cannot kill the river. So there's always something flowing through the river. And imagine if they shut off the water and we had none. That wouldn't work out either. So here's your 7-day forecast tomorrow. Another round of afternoon showers. I don't expect anything severe. And then less on Wednesday. And by Thursday, Friday, we get into a real rather sunny kind of humid weather with that Saharan dust giving us another trip. So that's kind of what we're looking at for our 7-day forecast. I want to remind everybody we do have a QR code. Love for you to scan that. If you do, then you would know immediately when all these watches and warnings go up, because we would send them to you on your phone. And again, this is a big week for us because at the end of this week, we're going to give away this big, gigantic, ginormous whole house generator. Thanks to our friends at Aztec Ford and Goliad, we're giving this away. You've got this week to sign up. It's real quick, real easy. Just go to crossroadstoday.com, click on menu, hit entertainment, then contest. And when you see this graphic, click on it and enter your name, your information, and your email so that we can contact you, because on Friday the 11th, we're going to pull the winner. So good luck. We will now toss it over to sports with Maxwell.
That's right, Matt. Victoria Northeast Senior Little League is ready to make history tomorrow morning out there in Richmond, Texas. We'll hear from multiple Northeast players coming up in sport. This past weekend, Victoria Northeast Little League advanced the Texas East State Championship game, which will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. after they defeated Heights Norhill 6-1 at George Park out there in Richmond, Texas. Now, if Northeast wins, they will advance to regionals, where they're going to keep building towards the World Series, where 7 of the current players from this team right now, they reached the World Series in South Carolina from last season. So we had a chance to catch up with all 7 of them to see what they think is different from last year's team compared to this team right now.
I say we have good chemistry and we're just hungry.
So we have a strong team going into this tournament and then hopefully the next one.
I think we're just more hungry this year. I mean, we know what it feels like to come up short last year, and we really want to bring back a U.S. championship to Victoria.
We have more chemistry, and then like through high school we played with each other.
Honestly, our defense is like way better this year, and we have really good pitching.
I feel good. I feel like we're a strong team. I feel like we're going to get a lot done this year, and we got a lot more to prove.
A lot more pitching, we have a lot more arms to throw. We have guys that we can put in the game at any time, and they can pretty much play. And then.
Now, from all 7 of these guys, Northeast Little League, they want to try to make history. There will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. They're going to reach regionals there next round. Now, staying in the Little League action, board to 8- and 10-year-old baseball, where Palacios became the Section 4 champions. This team played their hearts out. They're going to compete for the state tournament there. They're still figuring that out there in New Braunfels, so we're going to wish Palacios team luck going into state next week or whenever that will show up. Now, from Little League baseball action to St. Joseph softball, where they hosted their annual Youth Lady Flyers softball camp there at the Field of Dreams. And this camp was a 3-day event where ages 1st grade through 8th learned the basics of base running, fielding, batting, and much more. For day 1, the campers actually learned the basics of base running and fielding. So St. Joseph shortstop Valerie Villarreal and head coach Rule Chop will talk about how help coaching this camp meant to them.
Pretty great, because I remember being that age and wanting to get to learn and be as good as the older kids were being. And it kind of just makes me feel good to see all these little kids coming out, especially for St. Joe, because it gives us a lot of hope for the future. And
what I noticed was that they're all attentive, they're coachable, and you can tell that they really love the game. So that's really exciting to see.
Now, this camp will go on the next 2 days at the Field of Dreams, where the campers are going to learn the basics of hitting and pitching there for tomorrow evening there. So we can't wait to see how that camp goes on for the rest of the way. Now over to Refugio, where they revealed their All-South Baseball boys and girls track and field for the first. The baseball team had 2nd team honors, Xander Willis, and 3rd team Matthew Perez and Layden Garcia, and then utility player Ray Lewis. Then for girls track and field athlete of the year, went to Sierra Tilley. 1st team for sprinter went to Carly McLean. 2nd team sprinter went to Jasmine Lewis, and then high jumper Jasmine Howard. And boys track and field, they got 1st team thrower Colton Taylor. 2nd team out there there, and quarterback also for Refugio from the past year, and Keelan Brown, and then running back from Refugio as well. Jordan King got out there as a thrower. So congrats to all these Refugio athletes for being named by All South Texas. And finally, the Houston Astros, they played game 1 of their home series versus Cleveland Guardians, and that score is now updated. It was 6-5 last fall. It is 7-5. The Guardians would win the game tonight. The Guardians took the early 4-0 lead with that 3-run shot by Jose Ramirez. Astros would respond back with Taylor Trimble hitting a 3-run shot, but it would not be enough. And the Guardians take game 1. They'll be back there at Minute Maid Park with a party out there in Houston. That game will be there at 7:10 p.m. That's going to do it here in sports. Trenton and Shauna, back to you.
All right, well, stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 10, we'll take another last look at your weather and get ready for some serious style and facial hair flair. See what makes this beard-loving tradition unlike any other.
At the Taipei Zoo, a sweet celebration for Taiwan's first giant panda born on the island. The 12-year-old marked her birthday Sunday with an ice cream, cake, and dozens of fans lined up early to catch a glimpse. The parents were a gift from China back in 2008. The mother, now 20, also gave birth to a second cub in 2020. Unfortunately, the father passed away in 2022 at age 18. All of the pandas at the zoo are now females, and for now there are no plans to breed them again.
Nice.
The next big celebration is 21st birthday for Mom in August.
That's like a sorority. That's cool.
Right?
It's a sorority house.
Yeah, absolutely. Good vibrations. Oh, sorry. So I guess we have time for a little bit of a last look here.
You bet. Tomorrow we'll have a few little afternoon showers, but nothing significant or severe. So do watch out for that. It'll occur maybe 2 to 4 o'clock. Other than that, we're looking for clearing skies, more and more sunshine, and temperatures warming up to the mid-90s by this coming weekend.
Alrighty. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time with us. Sorry about the confusion there, but we actually do have a little bit of another story here.
Serious style.
Absolutely. Yeah. Facial hair flair from Pittsburgh flocked together for the Beard and Mustache Championships. Look at all that facial hair, mustache made of flowers, and even a Statue of Liberty look.
What?
Very crazy.
That's crazy.
So, you know. But we want to thank you so much for joining us, and join us for sunrise tomorrow.